And welcome back to the Ramey and Benny podcast. Ramey, how are you this fine day?
I'm doing excellent. We're recording this on a Thursday. I'm ready for the weekend. Let's say that I'm ready for the weekend.
Is that a Green Lantern t-shirt?
In honor of the subject today and what we'll be discussing, it's a Jewish Green Lantern shirt going on.
I didn't
I
I didn't see the star from where it's sitting. Wow,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
new for me. Okay,
yeah.
lovely.
But I'm
Okay,
I'm
good
doing
start.
well and ready for the weekend.
Okay, so quickly, let's jump right in. My good of the week this week is a shout out to Tom Thibodeau, the former coach of the New York Knicks. As a longtime Knick fan, suffering Knick fan for many, many decades, the gentleman who was let go this week had brought that team back to respectability with a really strong, I would call New Yorkish kind of attitude about basketball. And they very much appreciate it. He made them relevant again. He made them winners again. And he set expectations at a very high level for the team, which I really appreciate because it has not been that way for decades, I think, at this point. And then summarily was fired for not exceeding expectations, for making a couple of mistakes, for maybe not being the guy to take them to the next level. I don't know, but I can appreciate that it's a tough business. But my shout out, my good of the week is the coach for all the good that he did for New York basketball.
Let me ask you, in between now, when we're recording this, and when this airs, do you think he will be hired by another team? Like there's a realistic scenario that another team is gonna hire him while we're recording this as we speak right now.
It's a really good question. I don't know, like as I'm thinking about it, which teams are without a coach at the moment. I imagine there's a couple of teams in the NBA that don't have coaches right now, but I think he's a worthy candidate. There's always some things that every coach has that they can improve upon, in terms of the way they run their team or the style of basketball that they play and so on. But the guy wins. The guy wins. He hasn't won a title yet, but he wins. And I do, if I got a chance to look at it, I would imagine there's a good opportunity there for a coach like him for the right kind of team.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not a Knicks fan. I'm not really a huge NBA guy coming from Pittsburgh without a team, but I have lots of Knicks fans in my life. So I feel like if I had to adopt a team, they would be high on the list. So
I'm
I
sorry
feel
for
for you there.
those. I'm sorry for those people for being Knicks fans. I say it all the time. Like if you grew up in New York, so then you're born into it. There's not a lot you can do about it. But if you choose teams that are not winners, I don't know what that means. But like it's never. It can't be good. You know what I
Better,
mean? Like
better than I don't know. Better than being a bandwagon fan. Better than you can't
yeah, but
just.
I'm just saying like so you luck into some of it, but at the same time, there's so much psychology behind like how people choose their teams, right? Some it's just geographical. Some of it's their bandwagon because some team is winning and they needed a team and there's a team. Some of it have much deeper psychology. It's the opposite team of someone else in their family, right? Just creates all kinds of rage and fights and issues. I know plenty of people like that who and that psychology runs super deep. So yeah. Anyway, that's my good of the week. Thanks, coach.
Amazing, amazing. Mine is a little bit more, I guess, also in theme with what we're talking about today. And I know you have yet to introduce our topic, but I will say that everything that I'm going to share today, I learned from pretty much one person, with lots of other teachers along the way. But that teacher is a man by the name of Jeff Brooks. Jeff Brooks currently works for a company called Moshianic, which I think we've mentioned on previous episodes. But I've read his books, I've listened to his podcasts. A man has taught me really almost everything I know about fundraising and best practices. So I just want him to be our good of the week, my good of the week, considering everything that I'm going to profess over the course of our time together in this episode is from him. So agree or disagree, blame him, not me, I guess is another way to say it. But Jeff Brooks is my good of the week.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing. And yes, we'll link to Jeff Brooks and Moshianic in the show notes as well. Definitely worth considering signing up and joining, becoming a member of their work. Okay, here we go. Our topic today is what I would call what the nonprofits get wrong about fundraising emails, how to fix it, and how to do it right on a consistent basis. We're not going to get to all of that, but this is the general through line or the direction of what I want to discuss with you today. And what we're going to do is we're going to dissect one specific email that I received from a nonprofit. We'll mention the name of the organization in just a moment. And it's not to take shots at the organization at all. It's not about the organization per se. It's simply just a way to learn together about how to do this in a way that makes it better for every organization, right? And I think you're pretty much a master at this. So this dissection will be quite worthwhile. I will tell you at the outset, I did share this with one other person. I mentioned him before, Ephraim Gopin, multiple times in the course of the podcast. And his response was a 10-minute WhatsApp note to me, voice note, where it itself was a masterclass in how to break this down, but it was like a podcast in my WhatsApp for one person. So I shout out to him and appreciate his efforts in doing that. It was illuminating, and as this will be. And here's the scene. Okay, you ready? You open your inbox. There's a subject line from a nonprofit you support. You click, and in 4 seconds, you're out. No gift, no action, no connection. So today we're pulling apart one of those emails. Why doesn't it work? Why didn't it resonate? And how can we do it better? So the organization we're going to look at is the ADL, the Anti-Defamation-League. And I'm going to share the email on the screen with you here today. And let's see if I can actually find it. I don't even know where I have it. Okay, great. That's great. Let's see if I can find it. Is this it? Thought I opened it. Maybe I didn't. I did not. Okay, trying again. I'm going to edit this stuff out. Okay, so the ADL, and here's the backdrop. As I'm pulling it up, I will explain it. I got an email a little over a week ago from the organization. I'm a follower of the organization. I somehow ended up on an email list of theirs. I do not know how. Admittedly, at the moment, I am not a donor of the organization, but this was an ask. And so here it is. So I'm going to pull it up. We're going to read it out loud, and then Ramy is going to have at it. I don't know how else to say that. Like, I think that's the only way to say that. Okay, here we go. Okay, the headline is, Mark, we can't do this without you. Full disclosure, Mark is my official name. And for organizations that I have nothing to do with, I usually sign up as Mark, which is a tell. Anyway, okay. As you scroll down, it says, don't wait, our $50,000 challenge ends soon. In a box, it says, name Mark Marilis, goal $50,000, deadline May 31st, 2025, donation pending. And then there's a give now button. The email reads as follows. Dear Mark, you've joined the fight against anti-Semitism, and I wanted to make sure you had a chance to make your first donation before it's too late. Your donation will work to reverse an unprecedented surge in anti-Semitic incidents in communities across the country. Then there's a large graphic. The senseless violence must end. Your gift today will advance ADL's efforts on the front lines, fighting anti-Semitism and combating extremism in all its vile forms. When incidents like the ones above happen, ADL mobilizes our full resources in response. The ADL Center on Extremism, so on and so forth. We share our intelligence and analysis with Jewish organizations. We work with government to push for action to hold individuals and organizations accountable. We work with other Jewish communal groups to align on a common advocacy agenda. Right now, the safety of the Jewish community and truthfully all Americans depends on our collective ability to confront hate before it turns deadly. We can't sit idly by and just hope for better. Now in bold, that's why we need your help now more than ever. Your critical support today will help arm educators, lawmakers, law enforcement, and communities with the information, resources, and tools they need to combat this age-old hate. You and I cannot be silent in the face of this surge in anti-Semitism, not in our places of worship, not in our schools, not online, and not on our streets. Don't wait, make your donation now. Sincerely, Jonathan Greenblatt, CEO and National Director, ADL. P.S. Anti-Semitism has entered the mainstream of our society. You can help reverse this dangerous current of hate. Please give what you can now. Donation button. Okay. Have at it, man. Where do you want to start?
So I have a little bit of a preamble before we even dive in here, which is
Go for it.
a lot of the best practices that I think we're going to be talking about right now are taken from previous testing that we've seen in lots of different places, testing that people like Jeff Brooks have done and published. There's an amazing company called Next After that does a lot of testing. And the goal of the testing is to add to our list of best practices. So if it needs to be something learnable, teachable. It's not, it shouldn't be something that, if you pick two different subject lines to test, for instance, then there is a decent chance that you're just going to learn which subject line was better, A or B. The real goal of an A B test in something like that would be, though, what lesson can we learn from it that is going to inform us in the future? So that could be, for instance, you might want to like see if emojis in a subject line outperform subject lines without emojis. That's something that we can learn for the future. Should we include this or should we not? Now, the preamble is this. Testing is really important, and I think it's important for organizations to do themselves and for them to form hypotheses based on other people's research and to do it. I say that because there's been lots of times that I would guess wrong in terms of what works. And I want to put that out there because I think that what you and I are going to be talking about now, a lot of these are best practices, and I would bet the farm that they would work and you don't need to test them. And some of the things we're going to be talking about are really educated guesses, but we need to make sure that they are applicable for our specific audience when we're getting ready to send an email. So I think I want every organization, want every person who's listening to this to take this philosophy of test it yourself and make sure that these assumptions are right, make sure that these best practices are right. Now, you can't test everything and you got a million things to do, and this should be one of your many things on your priority list. So I think the best practices that we're going to go through are great place to start, but I don't think they're the place to end. So I need to throw that out there that organizations should do their testing and they should learn from this conversation and learn from teachers like Jeff Brooks. But they have to do their own testing as well.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. That's a good preamble. I'll before you dive even into the email itself, step back for a second and give us sort of and give the leader that's listening or the person who's writing these fundraising emails and wondering why their stuff maybe isn't landing. Like, what's the frame? What is best practice? And what are we trying to accomplish here, even in this exercise as the person sending it? So give us that, and then you can pull it apart.
I would say if I had to boil it down to one line, I would say we want donors to feel awesome about giving. That's what we're trying to do. So every single decision that we're making when we're crafting an email, when we're designing an email, when we're making a one-on-one solicitation to someone is this going to make this person feel awesome about saying yes? And I think that helps frame, that helps answer a lot of the unknowns, right? Because we don't know the answer to everything. We don't know, is this going to work or is that going to work? But generally speaking, if we can answer the question and say, if we make this choice, will that help us make the donor feel great about giving? And the answer is yes, that question, then that's a good choice to make. And with that said, I don't want to start by picking this email apart. I actually want to start with some of the great things that they did, right? Because they're amazing things to learn from here that not every organization does, right? What's the first word of the subject line?
My first name.
Your first name, right? There is a personalization attached to this that a lot of organizations can't do because they don't have the information to do it. It's not loaded properly in the CRM, or they just choose not to. They don't recognize how important it is. But this email is personalized. That is, I don't want to overlook these types of decisions because these types of small decisions add up to something really important.
So you want to save the baby first before throwing out the bathwater here.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
fine. So what's good? Go for that.
Okay. I have, I don't know what I write down, 6 or 7 things that jumped out to me as really great. The personalization is great. Personalization is great. You're going to see your name, I think, in multiple places. The subject line, they have your name in this box right here, and then I believe further on it says "Dear Mark," if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So you're getting your name 3 places right away, so that personalization is great. There are clear and direct calls to action throughout this piece. There are multiple CTAs, which are good. They're very clear. It is very clear to me what is being asked of me and what the organization wants me to do. So clear and direct call to action is awesome. They use urgency in a sense of a deadline in a fantastic way. There's a lot of give nows, make your first gift now. This match is going to end soon. They're
Is it
manufacturing
too
that
many?
sense of
Is that too
urgency.
many? Is there too many of them? Because just in like the first 4 lines of the email, you got 2 buttons.
I'll tell you, I don't think it's too many. I think, though, that they stressed this matching component as the sense of urgency a little bit too much as opposed to the problem at hand, which is anti Semitism. I would have loved to have seen that a little bit more higher up, that anti Semitism is getting out of control, and that is the sense of urgency that should elicit your gift, as opposed to the transaction of the matching gift. But I don't think that the sense of urgency in general is bad.
So then I'm getting ahead of myself. Keep going. So you like the personalization piece. You like the sense of urgency that exists in this document as well.
And the calls to action.
And the calls to action. So let's take an example, right? Right here, it says your donation will work to reverse an unprecedented surge in anti-Semitic incidents in communities across the country. That's a win. That's a plus, right?
Yeah, that's a plus. It's a plus. I have some detriments.
Is that one of the pluses that you just gave me, or that's
No,
not?
no.
Okay,
I
so
think the pluses are the big give now button, the make your first gift now button. Up above, it's this opportunity is ending soon. This challenge ends soon. There's that sense of urgency and the clear calls to action.
okay, so what?
And
Just give it.
I can go on in terms of the positives.
What does it mean when you say the clear call to action? What does that mean here?
I
In
mean,
the
if
context?
you there are over the course of this email, there are 3 big bright orange buttons that tell me to donate. And very often it's we don't just want to we want to make it painfully clear to someone who's opening up this email, like painfully clear what action you want me to take. And a big bright orange button that says give now, make your first gift now, give now to fight hate are ways to be painfully clear in telling me what you want me to do. Now, and those aren't even the only calls to action. They link, there's just a quote unquote normal hyperlink where it says make your donation now
Yeah,
further down. And
yeah.
I think there's no I don't have a problem with too many calls to action. I feel like I would always err on giving people too many things to click than not enough. I would like to talk a little bit about design in a second. Could you argue that this is over designed? There's an argument to be made that it's over designed, but in general, the calls to action I think are really, really strong.
So I want to go back to your first point of personalization, because I think there's another layer here of personalization, which I think is really important, which you glossed over, but I think it's not something to be missed, which is in this line here, right? The way their CRM is set up, they know that I have not yet donated to their organization, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm a supporter in the sense that I'm on their newsletter or I get emails from their CEO, whatever it is, right? But this line says you've joined the fight against anti-Semitism because basically you're on the email list. And I wanted to make sure that you had a chance to make your first donation before it's too late. That says to me, reader, hey, dude, we know you're on our list, but you're not yet a supporter of the work in direct form. And so here's your chance to do that. And then the button that's after that says, make your first gift now. So in that regard, that's really well done. So their system is really good, because flip that over. If it doesn't do that, I don't notice it, maybe. If it gets it wrong, it's like, I've been donating to you for 5 years and now you're asking me for my first gift. You got a problem. But here they zoomed in and they segmented their list to get Benny Marilis, or in this case, Mark Marilis, onto their not yet donated list. And he got the version of the email for the not yet donated group of people.
Yep. And that is all fantastic. The more that we can segment, the better off we're going to be. And this is a nice, subtle way to segment your audience, make sure that it's clear who this audience is. The recipient understands. The organization is doing it strategically. It's all fantastic.
Good. What
That part
else?
is all fantastic. I think they set up the problem solution framing really well, right? You highlighted a sentence earlier. Your donation will work to reverse an unprecedented surge in anti-Semitic incidents. There's a nice problem solution framing throughout. And the solution is very clear, right? The solution is donating so that the ADL can continue its work, right? It's a classic
This is
fundraising
all
structure.
right.
There's a
This
problem
part,
and you
right?
can help fix it. Yeah.
This whole
Yeah.
section of your gift today will advance X and Y and Z, A, B, C, D. That's the solution, right?
Yep. Yep. And they give really nice, I think there's a strong emotional pull throughout it, right? There's some key phrases throughout that just grabbed me that I was writing down even as you were reading it that I didn't even, I don't know, that just struck me as you were reading it out loud, right?
I'm
Senseless
a good
violence.
reader.
You do have a nice, strong,
That's what
deep
my
voice.
fourth
It is
grade
good.
teacher told me that I can
It's
read.
good.
Yeah. No, I get it. A certain language. Yeah. Okay, good.
Senseless violence must end. We cannot be silent. Like these phrases tug at the heartstrings. They pick up on values, on emotion. That's what we're going for. And those were the things that I really, really liked about it, that again are not a given because a lot of organizations tend to not do this stuff particularly well. So I think there's room for improvement in this email, and we'll get to that in a second. But those highlighting those things that it did well are important.
So I'm curious, in this section of the solution, right, there's 4 bullet points. Yeah. They all point to different things that the ADL does here. Is that the way to go about this? Because you want to capture, you don't know Benny Marillis, not yet donor, and so you don't know which one to zoom in on? Or are you looking to be sort of more global about what you do to capture the full picture of your work in this urgent moment?
I don't have a problem with them giving a broad scope of the work that they do in these 4 bullets, right? So it's they get right to work investigating perpetrators. They share their intelligence and analysis with Jewish organizations. They work with the government, right there. They in the 4th one as well, work with other Jewish community groups. Like they're hitting on all of their things that they do, and that doesn't bother me to sort of cast a wide net. Maybe because they don't know what you're interested in. Maybe because they don't. Not only do they not know what you're interested in, but they at the same time want to educate you about what they do, because the casual subscriber to the ADL's newsletter might know in general what their mission is to fight anti-Semitism, but how do they do that in practice? The average subscriber probably does not know. So I have no problem with them structuring the email and giving a wide scope of the activities that they do as an organization. I have another major problem with this section, though. Major problem.
Are you finished with all your goods before you're going to get to your major problems?
I am finished with my goods. I sat on my problems for a long time. It's been very hard for me to restrain myself, but I'm done with my goods. Yes.
Okay. So dive in on the next part of it. What was
Okay. So
not good?
my problem with let's focus right on the bullets, because I think if there was anything, this was the thing that bothers me the most in general about organizations messaging. If you just read these bullets, right, and again, like I can read them again just quickly. I won't read the whole things, but it's the ADL Center on Extremism gets right to work investigating perpetrators. We share our intelligence and analysis with Jewish organizations. We work with the government to push for action to hold individuals accountable. We work with other Jewish communal groups to align on a common advocacy agenda. All of those things have now positioned the ADL as the hero of this story. We are giving to the ADL so that the ADL can get right to work, so that they can share their intelligence. And there is such a simple way to use the exact same words and just make the donor the hero of the story, to empower me as the donor to actually feel like I did something, as opposed to
Right.
stand from the sidelines and cheer for the real heroes on the field, right? And it's as simple as, when you donate to the ADL, you get right to work investigating perpetrators. You share intelligence and analysis with Jewish organizations. They're not giving donors the credit for all of the amazing successes that the organization has. And it It bothers me because it's such an easy fix. It's such an easy fix. Some of the other things that we can talk about that are quote unquote wrong with this email, there might be sort of like two sides to the argument, and maybe they're harder to fix, and we got to go back to our designer to get this. This is like a stroke of the pen, click of the keyboard, whatever that phrase should be, like a couple of backspaces, replace the word we with you, and you're done, and it's over. And all of a sudden the donor feels great because they feel like when they donated, they just actually joined the fight against anti-Semitism.
Right. So the way it's written now, the donor is not in the story.
Not in the story.
Okay? And then the way it's written now, it's more markety than it is fundraising-y.
Yeah. Um, you've you've articulated the problem in this email, and you've articulated the solution, but you've made the solution that the ADL comes in and saves the day. And you haven't articulated the solution in a way where the donor comes in and saves the day. So I don't even know that it's best practice in marketing in general, but certainly for fundraising, it is not.
Well, I mean, just go deeper on the marketing side. I mean, if you're an organization, you want to talk about how good you are, what you do. You want to talk about how good you are at what you do. And so you might write it this way. You might even write it more specifically as to how you do that or show how you've done that. But from the standpoint of the donor piece, which you and I have talked about a lot over the course of many years, and is, I think, for many leaders counterintuitive, right? To make the donor the hero, to make it very donor-centric. My experience with watching and being in rooms with leaders reading your work as you're writing text for them for campaigns was that they had major trouble with that kind of language. So talk about that for a minute. You mentioned it at the outset, the donor feeling awesome, everything we can do here to make the donor feel awesome, and so on. But talk inside the idea of making these things donor-centric.
I don't, the reason why I say that it's not even a best practice in marketing is because even if you look at companies that are, like I know business to business sales companies that are focused on sales. When the rule is that you don't talk about how awesome the company is. What you're trying to talk about is how transformed the client is going to be when they use your product or service. So it's never a case of trying to describe how awesome we are, because the reason that people don't give is not because they doubt how awesome you are. I know there were a lot of negatives in that sentence, but the reason that you don't donate to the ADL is not because you don't trust them to do something good with your money. That's not why. You don't need them to convince you that they're worthy of your donation. What you need to hear is how you, Binny, will be transformed when you give, because you will have joined the fight against anti-Semitism, not in some proverbial way, but in a literal way. Your dollars are going to go to work fighting the hatred that is permeating the country. There's something very powerful there, but otherwise you're just a passive player in the story.
Right. If you, it's interesting because as you go deeper and you read it further, they actually do it initially, right? Where they talk about your donation will do X and Y and Z. And then when they actually talk about the actual work, they don't, right? So like they give you props for the global way your donation plays a role, but in the specifics of where it feels like I'm actually your partner in this fight, I'm not actually your partner in this fight.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if there was something really like big on this page in bold that said, "You can stop the next anti-Semitic attack." Right? Like who's going to want to be like, "Nah, I'll pass. I don't feel like doing that today." Right? Like, but if you're creating layers between the action that you want me to take and the actual work and impact that's being done in the field, then I don't feel that sense of urgency. I don't feel that sense of importance, that it's really important for me to do this. Because you know what? If I don't give, then someone else will. And as long as the ADL is well funded, that's all that's important to me. But if you make this about me and how it's important for me to give because I want to stop the next attack, right? Like what happened is terrible. what has been happening is terrible and I need to step up and stop it, then there's a reason for me to give.
Okay. What else?
I liked, as you were reading this, you described briefly the image, the infographic, or if that's what you can call it, that's in there. And they do give some. So, what it says is there's a data point in there. Anti Semitic assaults were up 21%. And then they give 3 examples. A man was shot on his way to services because he was Jewish. Another student was struck in the face by a classmate who said, I can punch you because you're Jewish. And last week, a couple was heinously shot to death after attending an event at the Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. I think throughout this piece, I was struck by how there were some missed opportunities to bring these stories to life and really make me feel them on a real internal, like, visceral level. I want to feel the pain of these stories. They're obviously terrible, terrible stories, but give these people names, right? Like, how put their pictures up there, right? We all know the names of the people that were killed in Washington, D.C. Like, those are not anonymous. It's possible the other 2 are anonymous, but, like, make me really understand that there are real people at the end of this process who are going to be impacted by my donation, whose lives are going to be saved by my donation. And you can do that by bringing these stories to life. And throughout the email, it felt a little, I don't want to say academic is not the exact right word, but it didn't feel so emotional. It felt a little, I don't know, like a,
Dispassionate.
yeah, yeah. There was something about it that, and it's again, it's disappointing to me because it's such a powerful subject. It's not hard to bring this passion to life here, and I feel like they took that opportunity in certain places and missed it in other places.
And we don't, neither of us know. Obviously, we're not in the room. We don't work with the ADL. We don't know anything about it. But do you think it's on like intentional that it sort of straddled this line of getting at these stories without being very personal and emotional and detailed, or is that lost? I mean, in some cases, probably with certain leaders, it's lost on them, and they just don't appreciate the next level of impact that they have with an email if they write it a certain.
I You are right that we weren't in the room. I want to put in right now. I'm going to do something live right now. I just copied the text of the email and I'm pasting it into ChatGPT and I'm going to ask it, what grade level was this written at?
Mm.
And
That's
the
all the
answer
whole
is
email.
the entire email, not just that block. And it shared with me that it's written at approximately a 10th to 11th grade reading level based on its vocabulary, sentence structure, and complexity. I would say we want this to be much simpler, much simpler. And to bring it down to real life, I would say, like, if you are sitting down to write an email or use ChatGPT to write this email, my next, if I were in charge of this email, I would take this great draft, I would plug it into ChatGPT and I would say, ChatGPT, can you rework this email with the exact same tone and style and everything? Just make it a 6th or 7th grade reading level instead of 10th or 11th. The sentences are going to become much smaller. There's not going to be so many, like, clauses and commas in there, and some of the words will be shortened. But even, we were highlighting a sentence before. Your donation will work to reverse an unprecedented surge in anti-Semitic incidents in communities across the country.
Yeah.
If you take that sentence and you shorten it and make it more powerful, it'll come down to a 6th or 7th grade reading level, and it will pack a bigger punch, right? Like, you can stop the next attack, right? Like, is a much simpler sentence and it delivers more of a punch. So that's why I don't think that it was a conscious decision to make these little vignettes that they bring in their infographic
Stylistic.
impersonal. I think it was, yeah, it sort of fits in with the rest of the email, which I would suggest is again another missed opportunity for them.
Right. It's like, take this line here: this senseless violence must end.
Great.
It's a good line, but the different way to say it is your donation,
Correct.
right? can
Correct.
stop the senseless violence, right?
Correct.
And that's a more donor-centric, donor-focused language. And I know it's not the same thing about the grade level, but because it's turned at the person, 6th or 7th graders speak differently than the 10th graders. And so it is more visceral. It can be more emotional. It's going to have shorter words. It's going to be shorter sentences. And it's going to very often hit harder because it's easier to understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good. What else?
So I think they took if you can scroll up for a second, they took this. There's a blue box that starts the email, and it
Yes.
looks almost like a card that says name. No, I wasn't talking about that blue box. This one. Okay, so it says name Mark Marilis, goal $50,000. The deadline is May 31st, and the donation amount is, I can't read that word on my screen the way my
Pending.
Okay, so I think, well, they borrowed this from a class of emails that I absolutely love. And that is from election emails. I love politicians' fundraising emails. I love them so much. I sign up for so many different politicians' emails for fundraising purposes. I find it fascinating. And I have no doubt, I view them also critically, but with them, I'm much more open minded about the choices that they make because I assume that they have the smartest people in the world and the biggest budgets to be able to do this. So I tend to give them, when I doubt something that they're doing, I doubt myself and I say, okay, what can I learn from this? And a lot of the emails will do something like this. They'll have this sort of box that's a your donation missing, something like that. It's not instinctive to me. It's not intuitive to me that this should be an effective tactic. But the fact that so many politicians use this, like national politicians with, again, millions of dollars of marketing budgets, are doing this says, okay, fine. But what those politicians tend to do uh, is give some sort of suggested donation amount. And I was surprised that this was not here. First of all, the goal at first glance, it looks like they want you to donate $50,000. To me, that was
It's not happening. Yeah.
that was a little weird to me. But I think they would be much better off if in this box or somewhere in the email they said they asked for a specific amount from you. People are going to say, if we anchor it, if we ask for $5, then that's how much people are going to give. And so they leave it open. But at this point, when you're dealing with with non-donors, you really have very little to lose by just getting them on the books. Get that nominal gift of $5, $10, whatever it is, and then you'll work on them for that second gift and a larger gift. But get them on the books as donors. They should have added a suggested gift amount.
I'm going to go in a different direction with this. I actually hate this box. Donation pending is simply not true. Like, I have made no decision. I'm being honest. I've made no decision at this point in your email to consider even making a donation, right? Like, my donation is not pending. It's not the same as my purchase is pending, my, credit card being approved on Amazon or whatever, which I think that's more likely where they get this from than the political stuff. So, like, don't put words in my mouth that I made a donation here. I'm being honest, like, reading this as a potential donor, yeah, first time through, like, it didn't land. It looked funny, honestly. And I had to get through 2 graphics before I got to any words about what exactly was going on in this email. Now, the first one above it is like a flash thing, which um, you and I both, I think, despise putting those in emails because in a lot of cases they don't get through the spam folder, and we would prefer more text than anything else. So, like, this box to me, which again, I get the idea that this is my donation card or something like that. It just doesn't land for me uh, whatsoever. And you're right, the goal is 50,000. Your goal for me as a first-time donor is not $50,000. Could you just make a donation, please, sir? Like, it's so I think that it misses there for me, like, just as a potential donor. That's not what stopped me or didn't stop me from making a donation, but it was something that jumped out at me And I really, the donation pending thing, I think just doesn't work.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
else?
So I think this is the last one I want to bring up because I feel bad. We're
No,
really
come
going to
on.
town
There's
on
so much more to do here. No, I'm kidding.
the I there's like a big debate amongst marketers about how designed these emails should be, both in a fundraising perspective. If you were getting an email from any company, from Amazon, from the Pottery Barn, like I don't know. My thinking, especially when it comes to fundraising, I'm always going to choose under designed over designed because I want this to feel as personal as possible. And this is not a personal email. It's sort of framed as a personal email because it's Dear Mark and it signs the CEO of the organization, but it's not a personal email. And I wonder, it would be like an awesome learning A/B test to send this exact email, warts and all, but just as a plain text email, or maybe with a button or two, but without the flashing box when you first click on the email, without this pending box from that they got from Amazon or from the election cycle, but like just have a pretty much a toned down, close to plain text email. Everything that I know tells me that that email will outperform a highly designed marketing email. And if you couple that with writing it in the tone of a personal email and changing the words so that it feels a little bit more personal, as if Jonathan Greenblatt was writing to Mark
Really?
Marilis
Yeah.
specifically, then I think that would be a winning formula right there. I really, really do. It's the combination of the design and the impersonalization in the wording that gives me pause about this.
Got it. I would add two more things from my standpoint. One, that's a really good point in terms of the writing. To me, the challenge here doesn't work for me. It's the ADL. They're gigantic. A $50,000 challenge doesn't sound genuine. It just seems like it's not even a rounding error at the ADL, right? As a number. So like that doesn't strike me as a challenge unless it's something exceptionally specific. Like, hey, this happened. Someone called us and said, I'm going to give you 50,000 to fix that. If you go raise another 50,000 to fix it. That hits better. And maybe I'm overreading it because I read these things all the time. So the challenge here doesn't sort of work well for me. And I thought you were going to go this direction at the outset when you talked about the idea that it maybe talks too much about the challenge and there's not enough about the anti-Semitism, which to me is a related point. But the challenge for me falls a little bit flat. Don't wait, our 50,000 challenge ends soon. So I don't care if your challenge ends soon. I haven't donated to you till this point. But to me, the 50, like, if you don't raise 50,000 at the ADL, is that going to stop you from doing the work you're doing? Are you not going to be able to perform your duties? I don't think so. So to me, that one falls a little bit flat. And the second thing that fell for me here was back in this section with the bullet points is, the first one is the only one that mentions the ADL Center of Extremism. That's unique to them. The other three bullet points, there are a lot of other organizations that do the same exact thing. And so I would want a little bit more specificity, if I could, in what exactly my donation is doing from an impact standpoint to get something accomplished that only the ADL, let's say, can do. And it doesn't go there. So like we work with other Jewish communal groups to align in a common advocacy agenda. Who are you? Are you APAC? Are you the Jewish Communal Relations Council? Are you Federation? Are you the ADL? Take it out of the Jewish context into the different contexts in the community. Are you the local, I don't know, community center? Like it doesn't, it's too generic in that way.
Interesting. I I have no issue with specificity and differentiating ourselves from the other organizations that are out there. So what I'm about to say, I don't want it to come across like I'm arguing that it's a bad thing to do those things. However, I don't know that it would be at the top of my priority list to fix it because, once again, the reason that someone isn't giving to the ADL is not because there's so many other organizations out there like them.
By the way, Mrs. Silka would be crushing you on all the negatives.
I know I got to find a way to say that more. I need to be able to say that sentence at a sixth grade level, right? I'm certainly not articulating myself at a sixth grade level. I think that the act of donating is largely an emotional, impulsive decision from people. So you don't want to get their wheels turning and thinking about these things. What you want them to do is spur them to action, motivate them, inspire them to give now because a life is on the line. And the more that you can do that, the better you're going to be. If you get bogged down in, okay, there's other organizations that bring Jewish groups together, but we do it in this specific way and that makes us special, then it becomes a little bit cerebral, and that's what you want to be aiming for is the emotional heartstrings piece.
Right. So in that sense, then I might have even like eliminated all the bullets and gone right to right now the safety of the Jewish community and all Americans depends on our collective ability, whatever. In that sentence there, right? That's here, right? Because that says it to me way better than we work with other Jewish communal groups to align on a common advocacy agenda. And so it loses me by the time I'm out, like I'm lost. You talk about cerebral, it's already too cerebral without being specific. And then that's why we need your help now more than ever. That's the through line that I need to see, but I'm not going to get there because it's 3 pages into the email. And it's after you gave me generic bullet points about the work that you do, as opposed to really zooming in on the moment, which you did with the 3 examples that you gave, even though those were generic, made generic a little bit too. And like, it has elements that work. It has elements that I think have drawbacks to it as an email. So yeah. What else? Is there anything else you want to share on this?
No, I wanted. I've been also holding this question in for 45 minutes now. How did we do compared to Gopin's 10-minute rant? Did we cover the bases that he hit on his voice note?
He has certain other things that he very much send it to you. Maybe I get his permission. I'll send it to you privately. But he has certain things that he just in emails and email marketing in general that he just doesn't like when they're sending it out for fundraising and donations. Some of which I echoed, but others that are just unique to his perspective on how these things work or don't work, or what works and what doesn't work. He's done much more research over the course of many years in terms of it. So, I mean, the result in this case was I actually didn't donate, honestly. Like, I didn't feel like the ADL needed me right now. And honestly, where my dollars are going at the moment is not to organizations like the ADL that are $100 million organizations that really truly don't need my $100. And admittedly, the $50,000 thing just did not resonate with me whatsoever. So like, I didn't actually donate in this case, so in that sense, it failed. I mean, to me, like then ultimately, when you're looking at this from the standpoint of what you're trying to accomplish, if the main goal is how do I get the donor to feel awesome, right? And I translate that to a degree, how do I get them to click, right? When I teach that one-off course on digital fundraising, it's called One Click Away, right? Because that's the one click. Did I do enough to get the person to click a button or to click a line in the text, right? That's a linked line to the donate button, to the donate page. That's like my first thing. The second thing is, do they finish the process by getting to the page and actually making a donation? That's a related but completely different part of the process. And for me, in this case, this email just didn't do it. It did spur me to send it to the both of you to get your interests and to see what you thought about it. You and I have done this exercise with other organizations, not recorded. So that's where I end up with an email like that. It's more of a learning exercise than it actually was a fundraising exercise, an actual donation exercise.
Sure. It's an awesome exercise to do. And I also recognize that it's really hard to do this well because I don't know what the person's position was in the ADL who writes this email, but I guarantee you there are lots of voices, chirping over that person's shoulder saying, do this, do that. And often in organizations, especially bigger bureaucratic ones, these things end up being written by committee. And it's sort of a hodgepodge of best practices taken from lots of great experience and well intentioned people. But you don't necessarily end up with one cohesive tone and voice throughout, which might be why we saw certain elements seemed to be heavy on this and other elements were heavy on that. So much so that there is one person out there who does a lot of writing, guy by the name of Tom Ahern, but he has some sort of stipulation when he works with people that you don't get to edit it once he gives it to you, right? What he writes when you hire him to write for him is what you send out. I don't know if that means literally you can't change a comma or whether there's not, like, I don't know what that means in practice, but
Wow.
he doesn't want what he's writing to be totally rewritten by some committee that doesn't have expertise in what he has. So that's very often the case with these things. And I just want to recognize that it's hard. It's hard to do this.
Yeah, it is hard to do this. I've actually had not that kind of a circumstance, but with some of your work where in the past clients, when I was working at doing crowdfunding campaigns at peer-to-peer, they would come back with all kinds of revisions and edits and all kinds of comments. It was one campaign specifically where there was a board member of the organization who was like a head of marketing at a very large company. And he took like a knife to your work. And I said to him, wasn't so nice, but I said it anyway. I said to him, how many of these have you written for fundraising? Those last two words were really important. He's like, this is the first one. I said, so I'll be honest with you, sir. I would never question your ability to write copy for marketing as it relates to the business that you're in, but I'll question you every day of the week as it relates to fundraising because those are not the same thing. And I said, if you want to spend the time on this, go right ahead, spend the time on it. But I imagine you'd have much better use of your time reaching out to potential donors here directly than rewriting the copy for the campaign page. And he put his pen down and just started calling donors. So like that was a very hard coaching moment, but it worked. And I knew that it would, but it landed. And yes, it is hard to write these things. It is hard to master the skill and the craft. The last thing I would say is I imagine that didn't come out as urgently, that email from the ADL, as it intended to sound. And therefore, they had a lot of time to write it and to create that sense of urgency around it. And a little bit of missed by the over design and all those other things that are in it. Yeah. Okay. Sum it up for me then. Finish it out.
Sum it up for you. Let me see. I actually wrote down something to that degree. If I would say we would want to make this, I would say ditch the heavy graphics. Let's try and make this a little more plain text. Bring it down to the individual level. Make me feel like there are real people at the end of this that are going to be impacted by a gift. Make the donor the hero, not the organization. Another great trick just to test your work is to circle all the we's or names of the organization every time you use the word we or the name of the organization, and circle all the you's. You want many more you's than we's, and that would not have passed the test at this particular email. Just simplify the language and include a specific dollar amount ask, I think is going to be much better, especially for people that are to be first-time givers.
Yeah, I agree. I would finish it with this. You don't need to be fancy. You just need to be really human, really clear, and really timely. And that's pretty much it. And now Ramy and I are going to send you off to go rewrite your emails like a pro. That is the Ramy and Benny podcast for this week. Look forward to seeing you guys next week.